How's it going, YouTube? I wanted to do a brief video on nihilism. This idea that life is somehow meaningless. That some atheists fall into that trap. It is really a trap for your mind to go down that path. And some people think it's a real hard thing to overcome, but it's really not. Is life meaningless? Or how do you find meaning in life? You know, if there is no afterlife. Or I'm not exactly sure why nihilism happens to be tied to atheism, or why some people fall prey to that. I went through that stage myself, and I have no explanation for why I went through that stage, except for I was transitioning out of Christianity specifically. I was raised a fundamentalist Christian, and very fundamentalist, to the point that the particular cult that I was in was overwhelmingly obsessed with the rapture. You know, Jesus coming back, you know, everybody being taken away. And this was something that was imminent. I remember at a very young age, like 8 or 9 or 10, having to come to grips with this concept that I wasn't going to have a life, that my life was pretty much on this planet was pretty much meaningless, because at any given moment the rapture was going to happen. I mean, they felt that it was going to happen. And this was during the Cold War. I mean, there was the possibility of nuclear war and all this. I mean, it all seemed very biblical, very apocalyptic. And that, to me, was nihilism. It was actually in religion that I had that state of mind, that life was meaningless. And when I was transitioning out of religion, I was becoming more skeptical, starting to question things, starting to see that there really wasn't any evidence for the beliefs that I held. And everything everybody was telling me was just bald assertions that they couldn't demonstrate to be true to anyone. And I started questioning the mechanism of faith as a justification for belief, and I couldn't make sense of it. At a very young age, I started to realize that the whole Jesus dying for your sins thing didn't make any sense whatsoever, especially given the concept of an omnipotent and omnipresent God that could do anything and have anything his way. I didn't understand why he would need to, come down to earth in human form and sacrifice himself to himself. So that started my path out of religion. But the only time I was really steeped in this, nihilistic thinking was in religion, because life was pretty much meaningless. This was just a holding pattern. I wasn't going to have a future. I wasn't going to need a future. It actually had a detrimental effect on my education, on my will to better myself. I did really poorly in high school, really poorly, because I was still a believer at that time. I was questioning my beliefs, but I was still a believer. And the evidence seemed overwhelming that the rapture was still going to happen, even if I didn't understand certain key aspects of scripture and dogma. The world was portrayed as getting progressively worse, because that's how they look at things. It's a very pessimistic cult that I was in. So when I became an atheist, I did go through some nihilism as well, but a very short period, maybe a year or two. And I found my way out because I realized that my future was in my hands, that I had the means to attribute meaning to my life, to find a path that was meaningful to me. And that was the key. I started realizing that there's no point in having a job just to make the money if I wasn't also enjoying myself and getting better and, contributing or doing something for society. I was doing retail jobs when I got out of the Army, and that was extremely bad for my psyche, because that's about as pointless as you can get. Unless you have a passion for helping people and getting them the product they want. But even then, it's a very shallow amount of meaning you can obtain from working retail. I did go from just basic retail to something a little more substantive. I started working for Radio Shack. I became a store manager. I actually really did enjoy talking about technology and helping people with technology questions and understanding technology. I was very much into educating my customers, and that was fulfilling for a while. But I also wanted to be more. I still wanted more for my life. I wanted to do more for people and help people in a more physical sense. I started working security, partially because of the pay. The average security guard got paid better than the manager of a Radio Shack store at the time. But also, that job was extremely fun. It was a lot of running around, chasing shoplifters, helping the police find shoplifters. I worked as a dispatcher for a while. That was extremely challenging, given that we didn't even have a CCTV system to monitor cameras throughout the mall. I had to pretty much visualize the mall in my head and listen to radio calls from the various security officers observing actions, and then relay that to management and to the police department, because they had a substation in this particular mall, to apprehend people, break up fights, or respond to an emergency. Someone fell down a flight of stairs or something. I actually witnessed a motorcycle accident at one point, and had to get the emergency services to that real quick. So that's actually pretty fulfilling, because you're protecting people. Yes, it's just security, but it's something. It was more than just working retail. I'm not knocking retail, by the way, as far as if you work retail right now, cool. But if you want to find deeper meaning in your life, do something more. That's all it is. If you don't find you have meaning in your life working retail, just find something more. Do more. Right now, I still work security because I'm working on my college degree. And this particular job has a lot of downtime, which is why I can shoot these videos. And I'm almost done with my degree. And I do not plan to be a security guard for the rest of my life. I don't think anybody does. Unless you get a really good gig where you're getting, $30+ an hour working for the government up in DC or something. I could see myself going that path if I had to. But I'd rather work in the tech industry, which is why I'm getting an IT degree and all this, while I'm working security right now. So this is just a means to an ends for me. But that's the point, is you set yourself goals. You set yourself a plan, like, I want to be better, I want to be able to do this, I want to have a job that I actually love to do, that I want to go to work and get paid for something that I love to do. That's meaning. Of course, I found an even more profound sense of meaning with the birth of my son. That changed me fundamentally. Now, I didn't start believing in God because I had a child, but damn near. Because it is incredible, the experience of having a child, and that can give you an extremely profound sense of meaning. I'm not saying that's going to work for everybody, and that wasn't my goal either. I mean, he was quite the accident. But I'm glad that accident happened, because that gave my life an even more solid foundation for my meaning, for my goals. Like, I'm not just trying to achieve this for me anymore, I'm trying to achieve this for him. I don't want him to have a dad who's just a security guard, not making hardly any kind of money, or doesn't have any direction. I want to show him that even if you get stuck, you can get out. Even if you feel you're stuck, you can still move on with your life. You can still do more with your life. And this will be a lesson to him as he grows up, that I started off in this very, very bad situation, money-wise, and I pulled myself out. I decided not to be defeated by previous life choices. I made a few errors. Let's put it that way. I made a few mistakes that screwed up my life for a good 10, 15 years, and I've been digging myself out of that hole ever since. But I'm almost out. And if I hadn't fought to get out of that hole, I'd still be in it. And I probably would be nihilistic if I was still in that hole and didn't have the motivation to get out. I had to make myself motivated to get out. I had to decide that, you know what, I'm stuck on this planet for a limited amount of time, and I'm not going to waste that time feeling sorry for myself or feeling bad for the mistakes I made and regretting my past. I'm going to live in the present and think about the future, but not get obsessed with the future either. See, I kind of adopted a pseudo-Buddhist mentality. I like a lot of what the Zen Buddhists hold as valued truths. I'm not religious about it. I don't meditate nearly as much as I should. I probably should meditate more, but I'm not religious about that religion. I just like some of their tenets. Because of course atheism doesn't have tenets. Atheism is just, I don't believe in a God. I don't accept the claims that a God exists. That's all atheism is. So you don't have anything on that to build a philosophy, to build a moral code, to build meaning for your life. You have to get that externally from something else. Like humanism is a really good way to start. Humanism led me to Buddhism, because I think Buddhism just kind of simplifies it a little bit. Although humanism really isn't that complicated once you get down to it. I'll do a video on that, but it's going to be a pretty short video, because it's really just a matter of valuing human life, because it's beneficial to value human life, because you're a human. That's pretty much it. But I'll go into more detail on it, some of the positions they hold. And I don't agree with everything, but for more or less, I'm a humanist who happens to have some Buddhist leanings. And of course, I'm an atheist, but that's just one single position on one single issue. The existence of a God, I'm not convinced, so I'm an atheist. But yeah, going back to my childhood as a Christian, this is the one thing that I'll never forgive my parents for. I've tried, and it hurts me that I can't get past it, can't forgive them for it. But raising me in that culture, that disgusting religion, where your life had no intrinsic meaning because this life here on earth was just, meaningless. The eternal afterlife was the goal. That was what you were shooting for. And you're just waiting for Jesus to come back, just waiting for Jesus to come back. He's going to come back next year. Oh, no, wait, that didn't happen. He's going to come back next year. Oh, crap, look at all this stuff going on in the world. He's going to come back soon because, there's even more bad stuff going on in the world. That mentality consumed my family and me with it, and gave me this very pessimistic, nihilistic look at my future. I remember crying about this, crying to God in prayer, begging him not to come back, because I wanted to have a future. I wanted to do things. I wanted to go to college. I wanted to do all these things. But, of course, no answers came, because I'm just talking to myself when you pray. That's pretty much the conclusion anybody can reach if you look at the statistics of prayer alone. It's exactly the same as chance. But I remember crying about that I didn't have a future because the end was so close. It was so near. And my parents, I honestly think they didn't care, because they were completely convinced that this was the end times, that this rapture thing was going to happen. And so they didn't follow up on me to make sure I was doing my homework. They didn't follow up on me to make sure I was getting decent grades, or if I got a D in this class, they'd be like, oh, you got a D in this class. And it wouldn't be much of a conversation about it. There wouldn't be any motivation to push. They didn't pay for my SAT score, SAT tests, so I couldn't even qualify using that system. College wasn't even a afterthought to them. because they didn't expect any of that to matter. It was just going to be a waste of money to put me through all of that stuff, and then the rapture was going to happen, and what was the point? And I partially agreed with them. What was the point? But like community college, hey, you don't have to have great scores in high school. Just go to community college. Shoot, it's practically free. If you're a state resident, your community college has grants, which are completely free. That's just free money that the government hands out to put you through college, and loans. And the loans aren't that bad. I'll have some debt when I get out of school, but it's not like I went to Yale or anything. I'm going to have like $200,000 in debt. No, it's community college. It's like $4,000 a semester or something like that. It's nothing. And then some of that $4,000 is covered by grants, which you don't have to pay back. It's just money. So this whole thing about free college that I guess Bernie Sanders was trying to push, it's like, well, it kind of is. If you don't want to go to some school just for the name of the school, you can pretty much go to college and not have to pay anything out of pocket. You might have some debt when you're done if you use the student loans that way, but you don't even have to use the student loans. Well, one of my semesters I didn't even bother with loans because I had 2 grants coming in, and the textbooks were cheap for that particular semester, so I just paid for them out of pocket. Yeah, and then that semester was completely free. I took like 4 classes. Didn't cost me a dime, except for the books. The books was like $150 for all 4, because it would just happen to be that way. Usually I pay around $300, $400. But that's the point. It's like, I pulled myself out of nihilism, said, I'm going to make myself better. I'm going to have an awesome future. My kid's going to have an awesome future because I'm going to have an awesome future. I now have a meaning for my existence. This is what meaning I've given myself. It's not pointless because it's finite. Because I know this is the only life I'm guaranteed to ever have. I can't count on there being an afterlife to look forward to. So I have to make the most of every day, every week, every month, every year while I'm here. Because that's all that's going to likely happen. And I don't intend to be miserable for my temporary existence on this planet. Why would you want to be miserable? Why would you not want to find meaning and do something awesome, try to be great, find a job that you love to do, get paid for something you love to do? Why wouldn't you want to do that? And that's the meaning of life. I'm going to live for my son. I'm going to live for myself and my wife. And that is meaning. In a very pure sense. And it's based on love, 100% love. Because I love my son, I love my wife, and I love myself now. I went through a period where I didn't love myself, or anybody for that matter. Didn't even understand what love was, especially once I got out of religion. The way they framed love was God is love, and it was very nebulous the way they tried to define love, and it's just like, except for the unconditional love part, I can sort of understand that because I would take a bullet for my wife or my child in a heartbeat. So I understand unconditional love, but I didn't understand why we should love. That it's actually just built into us to have empathy, to have compassion, to feel for other people. It's built into our nature as human beings, as a social animal. We are meant to do this because it helps all of us. It helps the entire human race if we perpetuate that meme that we instinctively have. So, well, anyways, I know that was a little bit abstract and a little bit all over the place, but that's kind of my position on nihilism at this point, is that there's no point to nihilism. I'm nihilistic about nihilism. And that there's every bit of a point to finding meaning for yourself and others. And everyone that you can possibly influence, you should want to influence positively. Because it makes for a better society, it makes for a better existence for you. And being the existence is finite, what else are you going to do with your time? Anyhow, thanks a lot, YouTube. I'll catch you later.